Hey guys, we've got Stefan here from Truflation. Stefan, if you can make your way up onto the stage, you'll just want you to walk through this door here. There you go, and you'll want to press G again to get on ghost mode. Hey, there he is. Cool. So Stefan, we've already heard from Suji at Mask, and I guess now is your turn to tell us a little bit about what Truflation's doing. I'll leave the stage to you for a second. I guess I can do a quick intro and let everybody know who you are. Stefan's been a big part of Koii. Actually, I think we met in Miami like almost 3 years ago now. And
Yeah.
Truflation, I think, is not your first project in crypto. I know you're involved in a whole bunch of other stuff, including Bitcoin.com way back. But Truflation, I think, is a pretty amazing initiative, and I think has a lot of potential to reshape how we interface with this kind of information. So I'm going to leave the stage to you. If you want to screen share, show people a little bit about the Truflation brand, anything interesting about what you're working on, give some quick updates, and tell people where to follow you. And then I'll come back on stage and ask some questions. We can do a little Q&A with the audience. Things have been pretty engaged. We just finished a grueling Q&A session about Koii for the last half an hour. So people seem pretty warmed up, and I think they're ready to give you all kinds of feedback. But I'll hop over here to the left and leave the stage to you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you guys can see me, can hear me well, and nice to be here. Thanks for having me, and great to meet the Koii community. We've been talking for a while. We've been working together on a couple of projects, and I've been in crypto since 2012, so over a decade of experience in Bitcoin. It started off with, and then sort of evolved into smart contracts on the blockchain, and really now sort of really getting a lot of infrastructure as well, decentralized. And so how do we manage that? And I've been totally immersed in this space ever since I got in this over a decade ago. I became the CEO of Bitcoin.com. That was sort of my first big venture in crypto, and started off doing sort of business development there, and really found I had a really good knack understanding how the technology worked, and really also how to scale it, and really focus on mobile first. Mobile was my background. I did a lot of mobile, built a lot of apps. I think I've done participated in about 1,000+ different mobile apps, from enterprise apps to end user apps, and then scaled that all significantly to about 20 million wallet holders for Bitcoin.com, and some 500,000 physical merchants where you could actually go and spend your Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash, and any of the merchants. And we built everything on the Bitcoin Cash rails so that we could do instantaneous and transactions at no fees. I mean, that was really our whole goal, so that I could send you $1 and it wouldn't cost me $20 in gas fees. I could send you 50 cents and it wouldn't cost me that amount. I could spend my Ethereum. But one thing I realized there was a gap there, was being able to pay in stable coins. That was really important. People did not want to spend 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas, right? That just wasn't on the cards. Psychologically, it might have been the same, but people just didn't want to do that. And so how do we do that? One way we did that was building out a protocol that enabled coins such as a Tether to migrate onto the Bitcoin rails, and we managed to do that. And so that was something we then scaled. But then the government shut everything down. We achieved that. Government shut everything down. They had COVID come in, and they sort of berated us and told us, don't worry, inflation's only transitory. And that really got me flowing, and it just really got me sort of rallied up a little bit, in the sense that, how can you just berate us? Any economist will tell you that that's next to impossible. You can't shut down growth, print that amount of money, and only say that inflation's transitory. So looked under the hood and realized the government tracks the data manually. So they don't have automated systems to do that. They only track 80,000 items instead of 18 million items that we track today. they update it and track it on a 6-month time lag. So they have huge time lag to get it instead of real time, what we managed to build out today. And then lastly, they edit the data. So if the data that they've reported is something, they go back up to 6 months back and change the data. And lastly, if they don't like the outcome and the way the data is portrayed, either they just won't report it anymore, or they will change the methodology at a whim. And so from our perspective, how do we go out and aggregate this, take a developer mindset and build a solution to then scale and report what is true inflation? That was the genesis of Truflation. That's what we built out. And today we have managed to do that, and we track this across the US and the UK. And here, what is inflation and why is inflation so important to everybody? Ultimately, it is a tax. It is a hidden tax. And here you can see you have a tax of about 22.3% over the last 4 years, or yeah, nearly 4 years. That's sort of the tax. You've lost that purchasing power. So all items that you generally purchase are now 22% more expensive. So it's a hidden tax form. Governments don't like to raise taxes, especially in in election years. They prefer to just debase and print more money. Why? Because it stimulates the economy in the short term. It gives the illusion, it buys votes, basically. It gives the illusion the economy is doing well, we're creating more jobs, but it ultimately debases people's portfolios, and yeah, it just reduces the actual purchasing power associated with the value of a dollar. And so that's sort of how we built this out, and we started doing this. Today, we track 18 million items. We have over 100,000 unique participants and users to our website who come to find out not only about inflation, but we also have a new feature that allows you to calculate your own personal inflation. So here you can then sort of choose a type. Are you going to be an urban professional? What is your annual salary? So we estimated it being $45,000, and then that calculates sort of how much you're spending on a monthly basis, and then ultimately what is your inflation. Your inflation is going to be about 2% on a monthly basis, and then how does that impact your household? And then what does that mean on your income? What should you be asking for in order to keep your purchasing power? And so you can run this through, and you can see what that looks like. If you're a suburban family, you live out in the rural area and you have a slightly higher income, maybe a double income, we're adding a feature here where you'll be able to connect your credit card on an anonymous basis. And all we do from the credit card is extract on a monthly basis what your purchasing habits are based on the merchants that you go to. So we see the merchant code, we see the amount, and then we rank those into the different categories, or the 12 categories that we have and we track. And we do that on an anonymous basis, and then you'll earn rewards for sharing that information through this feature and this application. But that's sort of what we've heard. People want to know what is their personal income, and we have about 4,000 visitors a week coming to this site and filling out this form. And as a result, because we have all of this data, we've started to aggregate a whole suite of economic indicators from the price of commodities, the price of real estate, the price of utilities, the price of labor, supply chain, etc. And we've brought all of this into a marketplace where people can actually just subscribe to the data feeds and embed that in a DEX, on a prediction market, in their Snowflake lake data lake, etc. And so we've enabled and tried to democratize the access to economic and financial data that have only been available to a select few. why, we see that currently today, based on inflation alone, you've got some $4.4 trillion worth of assets that have been aggregated and are tied to inflation. So $4.4 trillion in loans, and government generally are the ones issuing these loans, but so are corporates. Those loans are then used to are used to bring down the interest payment on the loan, because I'm making sure that there's an inflation guarantee associated with that loan. That loan is then, the interest and inflation calculation is done by the same people issuing the loans. And as you mentioned right early on in the beginning, you'll have heard that I mentioned how bad the existing numbers are, and we felt that based on that, there's a lot of room for innovation, and that's why we launched Truflation. Commodities is another area where we believe, particularly in Web3, how can I trade in commodities? How can I buy synthetics? There's $100 billion in profit limited to 15 different systemically important banks associated with the trading of commodities, and only they are allowed to access these centralized repositories of where pricing information resides, and a centralized exchange where they can trade that. How do we make this available so that I today can buy uranium and participate in the opportunity related to uranium? Orange juice. Orange juice was up last year by about 2x. Uranium is up around 3x last year. How can we participate in that, and what does that look like? And so we're building out indexes and other tracking capabilities associated with these prices and these assets, in order to enable all of you and others out there to trade on those. That's pretty much Truflation. That's what we've built out. Go out, follow our social channels, go to our Twitter. You can see the code base and access a lot of the APIs through GitHub, and sign up to our Telegram. We're in the process of getting ready to provide stronger governance around this, and then build out our own token to ensure adequate governance with this, and allow all of the community members to participate in how we govern this, what data sets to pursue, as well as what methodologies to ensure accurate numbers and metrics that we track across the financial sector and other sectors as well.
It's really awesome stuff, Stefan. I think as Leah in the chat there said, this is clearly a passion project for you. Can you talk a little bit about how this got started? Like, what was the impetus? Obviously, like COVID was a big trigger. Inflation's been going haywire for years and years and years, and like you said, like democratic processes and promises seem to be one of the big causes of that. But what actually got you onto this threat? How did you end up here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I just really felt that we needed to separate the people telling us, giving us inflation is the scorecard of an economy. The people reporting on that scorecard are the same people managing the economy. And I just felt that's broken. You can't have the same people reporting on a performance of an economy. Actually, the same people are the ones, sort of giving themselves a score as terms of how they're managing it, right? And so I just felt managing and scoring needed to be separate, and that's what we tried to do, and that was why we built it. And that's why we love working with like the likes of Koii, right? I mean, how we work together to be able to then actually get and crowdsource pricing information and be able to then share that with the greater community after we filtered it and integrated it and built out a system to then enable the distribution of what people are actually paying on the ground. And if we can aggregate that from a big enough of a consumer base, we then actually don't need these panels. We don't need forms. We don't need to make it feel like an arduous situation. And we reward people that share that information based on what they're sharing, right? And so that's another big area in terms of our focus.
Yeah, it's definitely, it seems like a great application for decentralized and distributed systems, because it's obvious that if we as the community can see the price tag, we should be able to just aggregate all that information. How does the value work there? Because obviously, you know, if we imagine like a whole bunch of people going into the grocery store every day and taking photos of all the labels, they could do that out of goodwill. But at some point, there has to be sort of like an economics value system to make that sustainable. How do you see that working? Like, or I guess, how does Truflation build up a value chain? I know you mentioned financial markets and commercial commodities markets. How does the flow of value work there if we were to get that back to the people who are collecting all this information?
Yeah, I mean that's why we're working with the likes of Koii, right? I mean we're keen to sort of tap into the network that you have. How do we allocate a certain amount of tokens to reward that contribution? We're still working through the fine art of what each contribution should add up to. And that's where your expertise comes in very handy, where you've already built out experience in that. And then how do we do an appropriate sharing associated with that? That's sort of where we're at today. We also, the way we've currently structured it is that people consuming the data, they be it a single stream, be it an index, we have different pricing models for the consumption of the data. And our view was just to share 20% of that revenue goes straight to all the contributors associated with the underlying data that is being consumed. And we then provide an additional 20% to the people that secure the network, and we provide the remaining to the participants across the ecosystem.
Awesome, awesome. So we're taking a revenue share from the data feed purchasing. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I'm excited to see this Truflation token come out. I think that's going to be a really powerful incentive. It seems like that's really the power of a lot of these tokens, is that they're kind of an incentive mechanism that works as a market-based solution. So once you put the token out there, then people have to come and provide the true data, as it were. I'm seeing a bunch of questions in the chat, so I'm